Hello. In this video, we'll talk about blood sugars, how elevated blood sugars might be impacting your brain, and what you can do about it. At the end of the video, we will have steps you can take to find specific interventions in your community or in your home to make a change for the better. You go to your doctor for this routine checkup and you think it's going to be an in and out mission. In for some blood work, out you go home. The next week you get your blood work results and lo and behold, there's a problem with your blood sugars. Your doctor contacts you talking about pre-diabetes and coming back in for further discussion, and when you hang up the phone, your mind is racing. What does this even mean? This is not an uncommon problem. In one study in the United States, they looked at about 16,000 people over the course of 7 years who had their blood sugars tested. They did not have a diagnosis of diabetes, but were just undergoing routine blood tests, and about 3.8% of people were found to have elevated blood sugars. This equates to roughly 7 million people in the United States who have elevated blood sugars and are not yet talking about this idea of diabetes or pre-diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is a problem for a lot of different reasons. It can cause issues with high blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, poor circulation, problems with vision or blindness, nerve damage, and cerebrovascular disease, or vascular disease in your brain. Studies show that people who have diabetes compared to people who don't have diabetes have an increased risk of cognitive problems and of being institutionalized. The type of dementia that they experience is often related to Alzheimer's disease or a vascular dementia. The longer you have diabetes, the greater your risk for cognitive problems. So what is A1C and why does it matter? Hemoglobin A1C, also called A1C for short, or HbA1c, or even glycated hemoglobin, is a measure of the glucose that's attached to your red blood cells. So what sugars are attached to the blood cells in your body? It gets reported as a percentage and can be an indicator for diagnosing pre-diabetes or diabetes. You can test your hemoglobin on any given day, but you can also do a test that measures the average of the last 2 or 3 months of hemoglobin in your body. This is the A1C test that you have at your doctor's office for checkups. The result gives you an idea of how well your body is managing blood sugars. A1C level can be understood in different categories. Below 5.7% is considered to be non-diabetic. Anywhere from 5.7% to 6.4% is considered to be pre-diabetic, and 6.5% or above is considered to be suggestive of diabetes. So if your provider is concerned about your A1C level, what's the standard of care? Well, oftentimes they'll be talking to you about really important things like diet and exercise and weight loss. They may talk to you about certain types of diabetes medications like metformin, which is a common one, and at some point they may talk to you about the use of insulin. Oftentimes they suggest that you monitor your blood sugars over time to see how they're changing with the different interventions. Today we're going to look at a meta-analysis, which is a combination of many different studies taking the data from each to have a more powerful look at the results. Today's meta-analysis took studies that ranged across a course of 30 years. It looked at 28 different studies, and it was for patients who had type 2 diabetes. In these studies, the patients were not yet so severely impacted by their diabetes that they needed to use insulin, or they were experiencing significant medical problems from their diagnosis. So this particular meta-analysis is interesting because it isn't looking at some of the standard interventions of medications and diet and so on, but it actually looked at mind-body interventions. These are things like mindfulness-based stress reduction programs, meditation, Qigong, and yoga. What was so striking about the results is that they all made a statistically significant and clinically significant difference for the people who practice them. It lowers blood sugars. The mindfulness-based stress reduction and meditation showed about a 0.5 percentage point decrease over time. Qigong showed about 0.66% decrease over time. And yoga was the clear winner of this meta-analysis because people who practiced yoga versus people who didn't practice yoga showed a full 1-point decrease in their A1C levels. And what seemed also important was that it didn't appear to matter how long the session of yoga was, but it did matter how many times a week people went. For each additional day during the week, there was another 0.22 reduction in A1C level. The researchers thought this was especially interesting because this change associated with yoga and A1C was roughly equivalent to the change they often see when people are diagnosed and treated with metformin for their diabetes. Many people might think it's pretty exciting to have either an alternative to using medications or something that they could add on the top of the medications, because many people in these studies were already taking the medications and the yoga intervention or these other interventions continue to make an additional difference. One takeaway message is that any of these methods can be useful in lowering A1C. So if you can't or don't want to do yoga for some reason, you might look into a meditation class or a mindfulness-based stress reduction class or offering like that that's available to you. If you do want to practice yoga and take advantage of this amazing way to use your body, have so many benefits, and impact your A1C level, there are a lot of different ways to access it. You might want to consider finding a yoga class in your community. And there are many ways to access this. You might try searching in your local senior centers, at local health or fitness clubs, or asking your doctor about it. So many people over the age of 50 are doing this that it's increasing substantially in terms of the offerings that are available. One study found that in 2012, about 4 million people that were over the age of 50 were doing yoga. And in 2016, this number had jumped to 14 million. The demand is obviously there. If you haven't been able to find a yoga class in those mechanisms, you might use one of the websites that are designed to help people search for them locally. 2 of them, Yoga for Seniors and Yoga Class Near You, are designed to be able to search to find people who are specifically targeting older adults and ways that yoga might work for them. I'll have the links in the section below. If you don't want to go outside of your home and practice yoga, you might also consider finding an online practitioner. I have to say that one of my YouTube heroes and personal favorites is Yoga with Adriene. I discovered her during the pandemic and she's lovely. In 2012 or 13, she started her organization that's designed to offer yoga to everyone around the world. And she's developed this amazing community of people who care about yoga and want to help each other practice. She is a warm, gentle personality, has a really cute dog, and makes yoga videos for just about any situation, including people who might be older or might have physical considerations in mind. Someday in the future, Adriene and I will likely sit down and talk about yoga and brain functioning, and maybe hang out and pet her dog for a little bit. I'll put a link to one of her videos here, and you can check it out to see if that's helpful for you. Or you can check out one of my other videos that talks about other types of exercise and interventions that's really good for your brain. Thanks for coming today. It's been a pleasure talking to you about all of this.